And we are continuing to follow this tragedy in Washington, D.C., where we had a deadly mid-air collision between American Eagle Flight 5342, 60 passengers, 4 crew, with a U.S. Army Blackhawk helicopter with 3 personnel on board. And we're looking right now as they continue the recovery in the very frigid Potomac water.
The good thing is, Jen, they do have ideal conditions to manage this recovery operation. The fact that they have to do it is the saddest thing we can talk about this year so far in our country, and we've had some awful things. We've had the fires out west. We've had a lot of things to talk about this January, but right now the focus is on that river, the Potomac River, there in our nation's capital. Good morning, I'm Justin Michaels, of course, Jen Carfagno, and we keep watching the details coming out of the White House, but also the investigation. I know Chris Richelieu, who is the acting administrator of the FAA, had some comments at the White House earlier. We're going to hear those coming up in just a few moments. But Jen, a sad day, and we had the president up there not all that long ago. And again, the president will always have more information than we have. But one thing he did was kind of relay some of the recordings they have from air traffic control. And one of those recordings, Jen, said that the president said, "Do you see him? Follow him in." That was air traffic control going to the helicopter pilot. And then the catastrophe happened. So that is definitely going to be involved in the investigation. And you can see on your screen there the teams in the water. One thing they're going to be trying to find, in fact, 2 things: the black boxes from that Blackhawk helicopter and also that passenger airliner, because those will give us detailed information up to the last second what exactly happened.
Right. There's still many missing pieces of information about exactly what each aircraft saw as it was coming in for a landing there at D.C. And you've talked a bit about the challenges of traveling and flying into D.C.
Yes.
Runway 33. It's a busy runway.
Busiest in the country.
And you have to route along the Potomac in order to make that access.
If you've never done the landing at DCA, no matter which direction you're flying in, north or southbound, it can be a little concerning to someone who may have never done it because of all of the national security airspace that is blocked for passenger planes coming in. It can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, especially that southbound approach when you're banking along the Potomac River, and that can be a little concerning to folks. It's a very difficult pattern to fly. Commercial pilots need special certifications to be able to make landings and takeoffs there because of how precarious it can be. Blackhawks also, Jen, another normal thing you see around our nation's capital going up and down the Potomac. National security interests, not the least of which the Pentagon, the White House, the CIA, the United States Capitol building, the Supreme Court. They're all within a few miles or even closer than that to the Potomac River where this crash happened. So the military protection of that airspace is a constant. It becomes white noise if you live there. Again, if you're not from there and you see it, it can be a little concerning, but it is totally normal to have Blackhawks in the air.
Well, in January, the Potomac River could have quite a lot of ice on it.
Right, and it did.
It did.
Right.
But in recent days, we've had a warm-up.
Right.
And so the ice broken up. The water, as you can see here, is not covered with ice. But with the gusty winds yesterday, likely moving the water, moving water also makes it even more dangerous. I mean, water temperatures in the mid-30s.
Right.
That's exceptionally dangerous.
I think it's listed right now in the investigation at 35-degree water. 35-degree water. And they gave us this information earlier. Within 1 minute, your body would go into shock. Within 10 minutes, you're losing control of your muscles. So we're talking about intensely cold, again, unsurvivable water. Right.
And so these are the conditions now that responders are working through. They're having to wear special dry suits. So that they are not getting affected by those water temperatures.
Another thing, Jen, as far as the wind and how it would affect the water, we were talking about very low water levels there in the Potomac. Likely the tide was out because we're talking about waist deep or more shallow water. So when the 2 aircraft would have hit, they would have hit the water very briefly, but then gotten lodged in the mud underneath that water in the Potomac, making this rescue or recovery, rather, operation even more difficult.
Yeah, it is such a tragedy, and certainly our hearts go out to everyone. And the president spoke about that as well, a tragedy of terrible proportions, and talked about the fact that it's shaken a lot of people here, and indeed here across the nation and around the world. Right,
and the president also giving major credit to local, state, military, and especially the Coast Guard who jumped into action. And again, if this kind of thing is going to happen, this particular body of water has so many personnel ready to jump into action any second of the day. and they did last night. The president giving credit to all of our first responders and military members who jumped into action to do what they could.
Yeah, we'll continue this discussion throughout the show. Stay with us right here on the Weather Channel.